My name is Dr. Ian Storch. I'm a board-certified gastroenterologist and osteopathic physician, and you are listening to DO or Do Not. If you are interested in joining our team or have suggestions or comments, please contact us at doordonotpodcast.com. Share our link with your friends and like us on Apple Podcasts, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope you enjoy this episode.
So, hi everyone. My name is Carissa Champion. I'm a physician in Florida, and I'm really excited to have on our podcast one of my mentors and role models and friends, Dr. Jen Caudle. She is a family physician and she's an osteopathic physician. She has such an amazing background that I think I could take the entire podcast time to just do her bio, but I definitely want to get to talking about her. Some of the things that I think are highlights that are really cool and unique are that she was actually a contestant on Miss America, and she is really involved in media for a billion different TV shows and different media outlets where she talks about medicine and really has a great audience in public health for that. And she also is a celloist somehow at the same time, and really is a great mentor for a lot of medical students and physicians. She's definitely been a role model to me. So without further ado, I'm so excited to be talking to Dr. Caudle.
Hi.
Welcome to our podcast. We're so excited to have you.
Well, I am so excited to be here. I have been looking forward to doing this podcast with you for a while now. Thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it definitely has been trying to figure out our schedules. So thank you so much. And I think it's kind of interesting that even though we kept trying to figure out when to do this, that we ended up doing it right around National Women's Physicians Day.
I know, which is awesome.
Yeah, I'm just stoked about that. So thank you so much. We're excited to have you. And we're just going to talk a little bit about some of your background. One thing I'm really excited about with podcasts is that it gives people a chance to hear people's stories and to hear stories that may resonate with them and inspire them and maybe, kind of give them direction in their own life and relate to people. So I think that you have a really cool and relatable story in so many ways. So I'm excited to get to be a part of telling that a little bit.
Oh, you're sweet.
So with that in mind, can you give me a little bit of an understanding of what it's like in a day, a typical day for you as, you have all these different roles. You're a media influencer, you work on different TV shows, you're a family physician, you're definitely an outspoken osteopathic physician. How do you roll all of those into a typical day?
Well, you know what? I do sometimes feel like my day is like a million days in one. Today is a good example of a day like that. And I'll tell you kind of what today was like for me. But I have to really thank my employer, Rowan University School of Osteopathic Medicine is more than an employer. Like I went to school there when it was UMDNJ, SOM, and now we're Rowan. They raised me in a way. I went to medical school. I did my last 2 years of residency there. And then being on the faculty there, I owe so much to them in terms of allowing me to pursue things that are of interest to me in terms of media and work like that, but also to help support our school with media, right? Because every time I go on TV or whatever, I have the opportunity to have Dr. Jen Caudle, Rowan University. So I love being able to sort of spread the name of my university, which I'm so grateful for. So the cool thing about the work that I do is I am an associate professor at Rowan SOM, and I'm a co-clerkship director for the third year of family medicine clerkship. I see patients 2 to 3 days per week, depending on the week. And then I do media 2 to 3 days per week, depending on the week. And many days I'm seeing patients and doing media the same day because media doesn't necessarily only come when I'm have those days to do media. It's a wonderful opportunity because it gives me the time to do media. Media is often spur of the moment. It's often spontaneous. You don't get a lot of notice. So to be able to have blocks of time where I'm able to do media is excellent. It's just awesome.
Yeah, that's wow. So you definitely are intentional about creating margin in your schedule, which I'm sure is part of how you can stay so balanced.
Well, I really appreciate that compliment. I cannot say that I am always balanced because I love my work so much. I find myself working so much. And I don't want to make that sound too rosy. I mean, yes, I love what I do. And I think that mixed in with the COVID pandemic and not being able to be with family and friends, I just sort of find myself working all the time, which is not what I'm advising for people out there. But, I don't know that it's necessarily that I've been able to carve out time. But Carissa, to your point, over the years as an attending at Rowan, I did speak with, my deans and my department chairs about my interests and how we can, how if they were willing to work with me on a schedule that might sort of allow some of those things. And for that, I'm really grateful. And yes, I had to go to them with ideas, and they were always very open and very, very gracious. So yeah, it definitely has been a collaboration. And I did have to sort of think ahead about, what would work here, what could work.
Wow, it sounds like your time at Rowan was very influential on you. And I'm wondering, I know that you and I have personally spoken about this, but I think that a lot of people would be interested to know how you became interested in media. I know that you've done a couple rotations as a medical student, as a resident, and you, like you said, have worked with people to allow yourself that freedom to be able to be involved in those things. But what got you interested in media?
You mentioned in my bio, and I don't know that everyone knows this, but certainly competing in the Miss America pageant was it was a big part of my life, not because it was something I did a lot, but it's because it made a really big impact on me. So I didn't do my first pageant until I was 20 years old. I wasn't one of these girls that did pageants all my life and sort of grew up in that. In fact, I really didn't think of myself as much of a pageant type at all, and I don't even now. I did it when I was a college student at Princeton, really to try to earn money. Miss America is one of the world's largest scholarship organizations for women. And I didn't really know that, even though I watched the pageant growing up, I didn't understand how big of a scholarship provider it was. So I did it for money. I was working 4 jobs off and on throughout college and, doing all sorts of odd jobs and things like that. So that's why I did it. But I was kind of shy and a little embarrassed and really felt like such like an unlikely candidate. I didn't even tell anybody I was competing because I just felt like they would laugh at me or something. And I was like, I'm not telling anybody I'm doing this. But what ended up happening was, 4 pageants later, I found myself at the Miss America pageant representing the state of Iowa. I was Miss Iowa in 1999. And, even though I really never planned on doing a pageant, I found myself in this environment where I just gained a lot of skills. I developed a lot of self-confidence. I realized I could do things I never thought I could do. I realized I could be things I never thought I could be. It was really a huge confidence builder for me. And for that reason, in addition to the scholarship money, I'm eternally grateful. And it was and part of the confidence building and stuff like that had to do with my job as Miss Iowa. As a state representative, you travel and you speak at schools, at ribbon cutting ceremonies, you name it. So I really I came to love communications. And this brings me back to you're saying, well, why did you want to do media? It was it was a couple years after the Miss Iowa pageant that I went to med school. And I realized, wow, I really loved my time communicating with people and talking and trying to, do good that way. Maybe I can mix medicine with communications and somehow. Is there a way I can do that? So that's really where the idea started. And it's really just the idea of on TV, on radio, on social media, in print, I can reach way more people than I can in the office when I see patients one at a time. And that's really what I fell in love with.
I love that. And obviously you and I have spoken about that before, and that's something I can really relate to. And I really think that that's something that a lot of people can learn so much from. You've spoken so much about different topics that impact a lot of people's lives, and you have that platform to do that.
Thank
and with
you.
that, you've spoken a lot about osteopathic medicine on social media. What do you think? I just want to hear your thoughts on that. And,
Sure.
and do you think that DOs need to do more to speak out on social media about osteopathic medicine and raise awareness of that? Or what are your thoughts on how physicians and specifically
Sure.
osteopathic physicians can better use media?
Sure. Well, no, I'm always a fan of advocacy. And I have to say, what I'm really loving seeing, as much as I hate this pandemic and it really is so horrible, one of the things I think that has come out of this or is happening is physicians, whether we're MDs or DOs, physicians are speaking, right? I'm a part of more physicians groups now than I ever have been on social media. I'm seeing physicians speak out and make their voice known about whether it's treatments for COVID, whether it's getting the COVID vaccine, whatever the case may be. And in the particular situation you're talking about, which was, the advocating for DOs, that was regarding, I'm trying to think, it had to do with DOs being referenced in disparaging ways in the media with regards to some news that's happened over the last few months. DOs being referred to as, not what we are, not as, first class, first rate physicians, but, myths and misconceptions about us. And, hearing whether it was newscasters perpetuate these myths or seeing it written about really angers me. I am a DO. You're a DO. We are DOs, and I chose to be a DO, as I know many of us did. I often tell the story that, when I was at Princeton, I wasn't even told about osteopathic medicine. I didn't even know what DOs were. And it wasn't until I was applying, doing my applications. I had applied after my Miss Iowa year. So it was a year or two after college, or was doing my applications then. And my mother was like, "Oh, are you going to apply to osteopathic school or whatever?" And I was like, "What's that? Bones?" Like what everybody says, right? And I didn't realize that my family doctor, the doctor who took care of my family and I, was a DO. Like the Dr. Johnson, the doctor who took care of my whole family. And I was like, "Who are these people? What are they? Who are these people?" And like literally at that moment, it was sort of like in the beginning of the internet. This was like literally in the beginning of like 2000, 20 years ago plus. I was like on the internet trying to figure out who DOs are and calling ACOM and whatever. And I just fell in love. And I didn't apply to any MD schools. I only applied to DO schools because of how much I love the philosophy. And that's why during this time, and it happens every now and then where, DOs will be in the news or something will come up about osteopathic medicine and we'll have to fight misconceptions. That's why I spoke up and still will and always will, because, number one, the misconceptions are wrong. And number two, I'm very proud of being an osteopathic physician. I chose this. This was my choice. It was my only choice. It was the only choice I wanted. So yeah, I'm always a fan of physicians and doctors speaking up. I also do believe that we all have our own particular gifts and strengths and traits, right? So for some people, it may not be advocacy. It may be it may not be advocacy of this type. It may be of a different kind. But whatever it is that we do as individuals to, to speak up, for lack of a better word, I think is important.
Yeah, so you're right. We all have our own spheres of influence and passions. I love that you only applied to DO schools. I actually was the same way. I knew that I wanted to be a DO, and I think that is such a cool thing that there are so many people that specifically wanted to be a part of that culture.
Right. Right.
So,
Right.
Going through medical school, gosh, so you went in through Miss America pageant and then you went to medical school. Like what drew you to medicine?
Yeah. Well, so after that,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good question. So I should have been clear. Medicine was always the plan. So I was pre-med in college. Medicine was always the plan. I just took the detour. And so, I was a college student. I was a sophomore pre-med doing all my stuff. And I learned about the Miss America pageant when I was home for like Easter break in Iowa. I was at church and this woman at our church told us about it. And to get to the point of Miss America, you have to compete on a local level and then a state level. And so I started competing at a local level when I would go back and forth from Iowa, back to school, whatever. And I won the pageants. And then I ended up going to Miss America. And when I won the title of Miss Iowa, it happened to coincide with the same weekend I graduated from Princeton. And what I did, because that happened, was I ended up taking a year off so that I could compete and be Miss Iowa and focus on that. And that's why. And then I ended up getting a job at MTV Network the next year from the work I had done as Miss Iowa. But it was then after that I went to med school. The plan was always to go to med school. This was really just a surprising detour that gave me a little extra added experience and some new stuff.
I feel like a lot of the cool things in life, and I think that you and I have actually talked about this before, but a lot of the cool things in life I find are kind of those things you didn't necessarily plan for.
Totally. So with you on that. Well, it was a lot of fun, and look, it was a lot of hard work. I met a lot of amazing women doing amazing things, women who even now to this day have changed the world, are changing the world. They've become politicians, doctors, lawyers. I mean, it's a remarkable group of women. And I think one of the reasons why I'm so upfront about talking about the experiences, it changed my mind. I was one of these people that was maybe a little skeptical, maybe a little bit like, I don't know about this. I certainly didn't see myself as a pageant type. And maybe I was worried about what people would think about me for being in a pageant. And I think one of the best parts of that experience, not only was gaining the confidence that I gained, the women that I met, the inspiration, et cetera, was literally being proven wrong and learning, wow, okay, I was wrong, and this is freaking amazing. And so, no, I'm very proud of that experience and very thankful for the scholarship money because, again, why I did it wasn't to be something or other. I needed money. And the cool thing about Miss America was even though I had competed, I was Miss Iowa in 1999. When I was in med school, like in 2003, I was still able to apply to scholarships for Miss America. And I got scholarship money even as a med student 4 or 5 years later for med school. So it just was like, I so needed it. It was so awesome,
There's so many directions that I want to go from here because I want to touch on so much of what you just talked about. So, as a woman, when we're talking again, National Women Physicians Day, having gone through a pageant or getting attention because, number one, you're obviously gorgeous. How do you feel like that impacted your professional career, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like it's a bunch of different perspectives out there. Like, how do you feel women go through their career with the identity of being a woman, that it's okay to be feminine, that it's okay to be proud of how you portray your femininity? How do you feel like that may have evolved or not have evolved? And do you have any advice for younger women going through their beginnings of their careers with that perspective?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. I mean, I'll be very honest with you. In the beginning of my career as a brand new attending, I was at Sinai Hospital in Baltimore, and we had a joint residency with Hopkins. And I was afraid for anyone to find out I'd been in a pageant because I was afraid of what they might think. I hate that I felt that way, but I wouldn't be honest with you if I didn't say that, or, because it's very real. But I also felt that way with media too early on. Back in the day, nobody was doing media who was a doctor. There was no social media. So, now we have Instagram influencers and this and that, and it's so cool. But that didn't exist 20 years ago. And I was also afraid of people thinking that I was just somebody who wanted to be on TV and wasn't like a serious doctor. I was worried about that too. And those are just very real concerns. Look, I'm a woman. I'm a Black woman. I was a young doctor in like my career. I wasn't an established attending who had been out and so no, I was worried and felt that I didn't know if I would be negatively or improperly or incorrectly judged because of it. My first 2 years out as an attending, I didn't tell anybody I did Miss Iowa or Miss America stuff. Now look, there's not much of a reason to talk about it anyway, right? But I was very protective of, my experiences because I didn't know how that would impact me. And even media, I didn't talk a lot about my hopes and desires as a young attending. And I do think that as a woman of color, as a woman, I mean, we have to. I don't want to say we have to, but these are often things that we think about. I mean, look, there are still women who feel nervous about getting pregnant while practicing as a physician for fear of judgment or whatever, right? So my point is less about the shame that it is that we worry about these things, because that's not my point, and it's not a shame. That's reality. That's the realness of the situation. The shame is that we live in a society that makes us second guess and question these things, whether it's having a child or pursuing interests or what have you. That's where the shame is. So, but no, I very, very honestly, no, I worried about that. As I've gotten older and more established as an attending, I've been attending for 12 years now. It's so funny. I actually just did a session with Rowan SOM students, a Zoom session for one of the clubs where students wanted to ask me questions about media. And now with students and residents, I'm so much more comfortable and able to be transparent about my journey and who I am. And, I know students and residents see my stuff on social media and it's okay now, but look, 10 years ago, it was just a whole different thing. Point to that. What's the right answer? Well, there is no right answer. What's right is what feels right to each individual person. And that's why I say, in our journeys as physicians, as professionals, et cetera, whether as a mom, I'm not a mom, but, for those who are moms, whatever, time sometimes changes how we feel about things. And I think the only thing that we are obligated to do is to act according to what makes sense and feels right to us at the time. Understanding that unfairly we may be judged for things, right? And that is a fact. That is a fact. It's an unfair fact, but it's a fact.
I love that. Thank you. I mean, it's refreshing to hear, transparently, like that is the truth. It is hard.
It sucks, but it's true.
You've spoken a lot about, women empowerment. You obviously, I think, to me anyway, you definitely embody women empowerment. And I know that you've done a lot for women. I think you have like a clothing company, or you have an attire type branding situation. And you also, I think, promote a scholarship for Black students for college. Is that correct?
Yeah. No, look at you. I'm so impressed. You've been reading, haven't you? Yeah, no. So,
I'm proud of you, Jen. Honestly, sorry, Dr. Caudle, you're incredible.
First of all, we're on first name basis, Missy. You can call me Jennifer. Hello. You're so funny. Yeah, no, when you're very sweet, I'm proud of you too. I mean, although I feel silly using that word proud because it just sort of implies that, anyone had anything to do with this but you. I mean, you're really I hope you're doing your own podcast at some point. I hope somebody's interviewing you, because there are not women like you. I'm serious. No, wait, hold on. Is somebody interviewing you for your podcast? And I hope the editors don't cut this out. Keep this in, please. Are you being interviewed?
Yeah, they are interviewing me too. Yes.
Very good. Okay, good. Just need to make sure, because you have such an inspirational story and you are very inspiring. I mean, talk about a beast. That is you. So, okay, anyway, I'm going to stop talking about you because you probably want me to stop. But what I will say is, as time has gone on, I have sort of delved into the area of sort of branding and stuff like that, really just to reach my audience in different ways. Honestly, my audience started asking for things like, hey, do you have a line of face masks? I'm like, no, I still don't, because, I just don't. But what I do is I have some t-shirts that I sell through my YouTube channel and through my website at drjencaudle.com. And I just released a new line of t-shirts that celebrate getting the COVID vaccine. So they say, I got the COVID vaccine, so that people can be really proud, just like as healthcare providers. I just know that before I got the vaccine, it was neat seeing all of our physician colleagues and healthcare provider colleagues getting the vaccine. It just made me so excited to get it. And I remember thinking, like, what if I weren't in healthcare? Would I have the same positive sort of stimulus and stimuli that I have because I'm a healthcare provider? So a couple things I did was I started a Facebook group called I Got the COVID Vaccine. Very simple, but it's a public group for anyone who's got the COVID vaccine, plans to get it, or wants to learn from people who actually got it, so that real people can hear from real people who got the vaccine. And then I started selling t-shirts that said I got the COVID vaccine, just as a way to celebrate this. A portion of the proceeds for everything I sell goes to either a scholarship at Lane College, which is where my parents, it's a HBCU, a historically Black college that my parents went to. But as of the last year during the pandemic, I've been giving a portion of the proceeds to the Red Cross, because, well, we all need the Red Cross and they're doing a lot. So yeah, it's just a way to kind of give back and to, celebrate and, I don't know, all that good stuff,
That is so amazing. I love that so much.
Oh, thanks.
Okay. I have so many more questions, and I know we only have a few more minutes. So
Okay.
obviously, students wrote in saying they wanted to hear from you. There were so many people that were
Are you
like, we want to hear
serious?
more
No,
from
you're
her.
lying. What?
No, I'm not. I'm not lying. I'm not lying. People were like, you have to interview this lady. She's incredible. So, and I was like, absolutely, we do, because she's amazing. But
Oh, well, students and whoever wrote in, God bless you. Like, I'm like, holy schmoly, that like warms my heart. Sheesh.
well, I'm trying to do them justice because they have so many questions, and I feel like you need your own TV show to answer all of them.
Aw.
But a lot of them were, obviously wanting to know advice for those who may or may not be physicians or in the medical field, but advice for those in general on how to get started in media and, using their voice and their platform, since you've been really successful in that, if you have advice for them.
Absolutely. Well, so one thing I'll say is what's really, really cool right now with social media and blogging and vlogging and podcasting, is that there's so many outlets to make a dent in this world, which is awesome. When we talk about media, we're not just talking about TV anymore. We're talking about radio and podcasts and social media and blogs and blogs and I love that. So the first thing I actually suggest, I learned a lot from the people who came before me doing media, doing TV. And when I started, it was really just TV. There are some amazing physicians on social media, on TV that have podcasts, blogs that are doing freaking crazy, amazing things. And one of the first things I suggest for any students or residents out there who are interested is you need to follow some of these folks to get a taste for what's possible. See how people do different things. See how they get their voice across. There's a few names that come off the top of my head, but I'm also afraid to mention some names for fear of leaving out other names of people, of doctors who are doing amazing things. Maybe what I need to do is get together a list of people. Like, there are so many awesome physicians that are social media influencers, meaning that they simply create content that influences the masses, which is amazing. That's the first thing I would do, is find other people who are doing this. Find the people who are just doing TV, like Sanjay Gupta, right? He does TV. He's got social media and stuff through CNN. But then there's also people who do their own content. People like myself. Dr. Mike has his own content, Zubin Damania. And then there are people that do social media, that are on TikTok, etc. There's, find out and watch what they do. Watch how they do it. Think about what makes sense. Do you like it? Do you not? What's your style? What do you want? Maybe you don't want any of that. Maybe you want something totally different. I think the best place to get ideas, as plagiaristically as this sound is, the best place to get ideas is from other people. Not ideas that you steal, but ideas to understand what is it that you want, right? That's definitely the first place that I would start. Then, and I'll keep the second part simple because we could probably do 10 podcasts on like, how do you actually get into it? There's a lot of different ways to literally, I say break into it, but I'll be honest with you, a very simple and straightforward way is just creating your own content. And that doesn't have to be as big as making videos. You don't need a production company. You don't need to, set aside hours and hours a day. All you need is an iPhone. And if you don't have time to make videos, or if that's not your thing, then post a picture with a thoughtful caption. That's a way to get across your message. So remember, being in media and doing media can take many, many different forms. And I think keeping an open mind and being thoughtful about that is one of the best things we can do.
I love it. Well, you're right. We could do like 10 podcasts on this. And if you ever want to, please let me know, because that would be fun.
Oh, nice.
But I want to also talk, we're in the midst of a really important month, and we're doing a bunch of podcasts involving physician leaders who are African American. And I wanted to talk a little bit about your experience. I don't think that a few minutes is enough to respect that and to capture that, but I at least want to touch on it somewhat. So can you talk about being a minority? You're a woman, you're an osteopathic physician, and you're African American. What advice do you have for other students, other women, other African Americans that are thinking about osteopathic medical school and, just in general? I'm sure that you have a lot to say on that, but I just wanted to have you touch on that if you could.
Sure. No. And I appreciate your words about, the importance of touching on it. But you're right. As I'm thinking about how do I want to answer the question, I'm like, oh crap, where do I start? Good googly moogly, as I often say to myself when I'm thinking. There's a couple things I think I need to say, and they may not be connected or interrelated. But first is this issue or the reality that we're living in, which is, America today. The fact that systemic and institutionalized racism has literally been a part of this country's history since its inception. Now, I'm not trying to go back to way, way back in the day, and I'm not going to do all that, but I would be remiss to not mention that although we have made many, many, many strides and we have moved forward in many, many ways, racism still exists in this country. And we know that we know that. But, we also know that with this year's events, we're literally living through a racial reckoning, one that's been very painful for this country through George Floyd and so many other events that have brought this to the forefront. Now, it's not that we didn't know this was happening. It's just I think now a lot more people know it's happening and know that racism has been an issue. So I say all of that because I feel like I can't even start to talk about race before I actually say that. It's almost like I don't even feel right even talking about being a Black woman before I say, let's just remember and remind ourselves that racism actually has always been here. And it still is. Although we are working societally to get better. What I would say in that regard is that it's not always easy being a Black woman. It's not always easy being a woman. I'm going to focus on being a Black woman because that's what I am. But no, it's not always easy. And sometimes it's still very hard. And do I still encounter racism every single day? Sometimes it's louder than other times. As I mentioned, when I was thinking about media early in my career and the pageants I'd done, did I worry about being discriminated against even further? I'm a Black woman in medicine, and now is it going to be even harder for me because of these other things I want to do that are unconventional? So I'm saying this to every Black woman, every Black man, every person of color out there that, understand that while every single day that we wake up, we never forget that we are a person of color in this country. It should never stop us from doing what we feel is right, good, and important in our lives. Not that I would expect it would for any listeners. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably already feel that way. As much as things have been hard in this last year and have been hard throughout the entire history of America, there is hope. As people of color, I do trust and believe that things will continue to get better. Things will still be hard, but I guess my purpose is to encourage and to inspire. I am so proud of who I am. I would never want to be anyone different, ever, 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 ever. And the world is your oyster. And so I know that this sounds a bit stilted because I'm literally sort of thinking on the spot. And I guess I don't know. I don't know why. It's not that this question is hard for me to answer. It's just I don't know why I feel like I'm in the state of mind that I am right now. I just don't want anyone out there who's listening, if you're a student, et cetera, and you feel like it's tough, I'm just going to be the first one to tell you, if no one else has, it's okay. And yes, it is tough sometimes, a lot of times, but it's okay. And you're going to be okay. And you're going to get through this. And I can say that for women, it's tough. Yeah, it's tough for us. We make less. We're promoted less. We're looked over more. We got ceilings all around us. And it's tough. And it's going to be tough. But that's okay. And we're going to get through this. So, Carissa, I'm not sure really what question I asked or answered for you. But I think suffice it to say that if those listening can't tell, there's never a single day or a moment in my life that I'm not keenly aware that I'm a Black woman, regardless of what it seems. I don't know what it seems like to people. I have no idea. There's not a single moment of any day that I don't remember that. And I love being a Black woman. But with that, it's tough. But also with that, I know that things will continue to get better. And honestly, the sky's the limit. So I don't know. Before I talk myself into a circle again, I'm going to stop right there.
Wow. I just genuinely, I've heard a lot of people talk on this topic, and I don't know why, but your words just made me tear up. I mean, it was so beautiful and amazing. So thank you for being open. I hope that people hear this and can hear your words because they were really beautiful.
Well, thank you. I hope it helps someone listening,
Yeah. And, there's obviously so many barriers that we're working to overcome. I mean, I'm focusing on medicine, but just in general even, but, opening up opportunities and recognizing the gifts that every person has and the striving to honor that.
Yeah.
So many barriers that we're working to overcome, especially for, increasing our diversity in medical education. Are there any, and I don't know if you have anything or any thoughts on this or not, but if you have any thoughts or advice for Black students who are wanting to go to medical school or wanting to do something like that, or if there's something that you think helped make you successful in your own definition of that.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. These are really great questions, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to actually speak specifically about this, because it does matter. The phrase representation matters. I hear it all the time, but I think it's in the last year or so that I really, really, really it just hit me in the stomach, right? How much it matters. When I was applying to med schools and getting ready to med schools, I was told things that some other people are probably told, oh, I don't know about your MCATs. I don't know if they're high enough. I don't know about your grades. And, look, I had a lot of self-doubt. I wondered if I was good enough. I wondered if I would be good enough. I wondered if I would get in. I wondered if I was worthy. I wondered when I got in, if I would make it. I wondered every step of the way, and I worried every step of the way. And I think one of the things that really, really helped me keep my head up and be able to keep my head up and keep moving forward on those days that I really felt like, I just don't know if I can do this. I just don't know if it's going to happen. It was surrounding myself with people that were good for me and good to me, whether it's mentors that are always there to kind of give you a pat on the back and kind of lift you up and say, hey, go get him, Tiger, put on some lipstick and comb your hair and get on back out there to the library and study, or whatever the case was. Or maybe it's friends or family members who were always supportive. I would also say in this day and age of social media, and this is not specific to, say, Black students. I want this, I don't want to say this particular part, but I mean, this is for anybody, right? This idea of, I think one of my keys to success over the years, sometimes people ask, is, what do you think has helped you be successful? For me, it's been not listening to other people. If I listened to all the freaking people that had, excuse my French, shit to say to me, I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am, for better or for worse. I mean, I think that in this day and age of social media, where you can literally see inside people's homes, in their bowls of acai berries and crap like that, things, what they're eating for lunch and what they're doing. And you can literally see into people's lives, whether it's the truth or the truth that they want you to think. This world gets a little funny with the messages that we get. And whether it's chat rooms, pre-med chat rooms, or this and that, comparison is a dream killer, man. Nothing will kill a dream quicker than comparison. Comparing yourself to someone else's journey or to someone else, to their path. Oh, well, they got in after this, or they had a score of this. And nothing kills dreams better than that, or will make you lose sleep due to anxiety. And I'll say it once again, if I listened to what other people think or thought about the things I was doing, I never would have done most things in my life. I didn't tell anyone I was competing for Miss America, number one, because I was a little embarrassed. I didn't know what people would think about me. But I was also afraid that they would also think I was probably not worthy and make me feel like, what are you doing competing in a pageant? Which they might have. And which case might have changed my trajectory. I couldn't afford to change my trajectory. And I still can't. I never can, which is why I don't usually talk to a lot of people. Now, I'm not trying to tell you to become like a hermit, So that's not my point. I'm sort of I'm not exaggerating. I kind of keep things close to the belt because I don't know. It's too important. So I guess what I'm saying is, for those pre-meds, Black students, people of color, non-people of color, whatever, as you're going through your life and trying to accomplish your goals, be very, very careful who you let in to your mind, into your heart, into your psyche. Be thoughtful about that and take care of yourself and be around situations and people and environments that are good for you. Not every environment is going to feed you the nourishment that you need to succeed. So you owe it to yourself to only be in those environments that are good for you, that support you, that encourage you, that give you the strength and the motivation that you need, not be environments that may tear you down or question you or what have you. We can all make those decisions for ourselves, right? Everybody has sort of a different tolerance for, differences of opinions, etc. But something that's helped me is, just kind of keeping my head down and moving forward. So.
I love that. But I mean, at the same time, and I know we only have a few minutes left, I have one question after this, but
yeah,
at the same time, sometimes you have to get through those environments.
Yes.
To get on the other side. And it can be really hard.
we do have to get through those environments. And maybe in addition to me, maybe that was also my way of getting through them. Maybe that was a way that I was able to sort of deal with the naysayers and the this and that's, was to kind of tune it out, or to try to put it in a place where I didn't try to let it internalize and become internal with me. Look, I'm not going to say it's easy, and I'm not going to say I'm always the best at doing it. The Rowan students that I was just doing this Skype for before I got onto this podcast with you, they asked me, one student asked me, they said, have you ever gotten, well, how do you deal with negative feedback on social media? And they said, how do you deal with negative comments and this and that? And I told some stories about how early on doing media, writing articles, being on TV, I destroyed, like destroyed. And through time, however, my skin got thicker, and I also was able to learn from those events. Not that I would have changed anything, because I wouldn't. I said what I needed to say on TV. People just didn't like me saying that vaccines are good. So people who didn't like vaccines decided to rip me a new one, and things like that. But it taught me a lot. So I think, Chris, I think your point is a good one, in that, look, maybe we always can't tune out other people. So maybe we can, but it is important to learn how to deal with adversity, though, because that is something we're always going to have, especially if you're trying to make a mark in this world. There's always going to be someone who's not crazy about it, who doesn't want to hear it from you, or just doesn't like you, or doesn't like what you're saying. That is always going to be the case. So yeah, developing a tough skin is going to be very, very important. As I always say, learning to put on our big girl panties and, and get through it. But it definitely is a balance as we're trying to go through this thing called life, a balance of making sure we're in positive, supportive environments, but also making sure that we're able to withstand the tough environments that we eventually will be in, because that's just life.
I love that. Thank you. That speaks to me too. So I really appreciate that. I have one more question.
Yes.
Just to close out on, what was the best piece of advice that you've gotten in your career, your education, growing up, medical school, college, residency, whatever that may be, that you still think of and that you would want to pass on to others or students or just people in general?
Oh my gosh. That's such a pageant question, by the way. Do you know what makes that a pageant question? In a good way. It's not a bad thing. So when I was getting ready for Miss America, we had mock interviews, because an interview component was part of the final score. And it was actually, when I competed, the biggest part of the score. So I would practice with my pageant board, answering questions, how to answer questions, things like that. Questions that I always struggled with, that I personally call pageant questions, are the questions that are open-ended. You know what I mean? Like, what's the one thing? What's your favorite thing? What's the best? And I always struggle with those, because I'm like, oh my God, I can't pick one.
How are you supposed to answer those questions?
I mean, the hope is that I sometimes just feel like I'm indecisive, right? So I feel like, what do you mean my favorite singer? What do you mean my favorite actor? What do you mean my favorite piece of advice? I've got 50 million. I think that some people are just better at questions like that, number one. And I think some people probably have more salient sort of, things that they remember. I don't know. But I'm going to take a stab at it. I don't know if it's okay. It's not necessarily a piece of advice that I've gotten, but there's a couple of things, quotes. I'm big on quotes. I love quotes. Things that I've heard or encountered over the years that have continued to shape who I am. Okay, so one of them is a quote by Mae West. And she said, "You only live once, but if you do it right, once is enough." Right? Does that not hit you in the stomach? Like, we get one shot on this planet. That's it. But you know what? If you do it the right way, all you need is one time, which it still sends chills up my spine. And it really is part of who I am as a person. It's probably one of the reasons why I engage myself in the projects I do. And I mean, look, I know you're like a freaking badass. I know all the stuff you do. You're amazing. But it's kind of like when you're living your passion, when you're living your dreams, you wouldn't have it any other way. And if you had to do it all over again, you wouldn't do it any differently. Maybe it also means that you only need to live one. If you do it right, you don't need any more times around the sun. Anyway, so I love that. And then I also love this quote by Marianne Williamson, who said that, and this is part of the quote, it's an excerpt from it. She said, "One of our greatest fears is not that we are inadequate. It's that we are powerful beyond measure." Who are we to be fabulous and wonderful and beautiful and amazing and who are we to be all these awesome things? But really, who are you not to be? Like, right? Like, who are you not to be? Beautiful, amazing, awesome, smart. People say, well, we shrink ourselves, right? We shrink ourselves to fit into other people's boxes, to fit into other people's worlds or the world's world or whatever, saying, gosh, who am I to be everything? Who am I? But the question is, who are you not to be? Right? Like, oh my God, love, 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 love that. Like it just, and it gives me fire. It gives me drive. It keeps me saying, well, shoot, doggone it. You better get on up here and go do something, Jen. And let me see if I have one more for you. Like, so quotes, I don't know, man. I just love. And then maybe I'll leave you with a medical student thing. This is something I tell a lot of my medical students, which is just a little different than some of the greater life stuff. But I'm the co-clerkship director for medical students at Rowan SOM. And a lot of the students they'll say, Dr. Caudle, how do you like me to present? Every attending is different. And I appreciate when they ask, because every attending is different. So I tell them and this and that. But usually by the end of the rotation, or I try to tell them, look, you're going to see a lot of different attendings and a lot of different residents and a lot of different styles of care as a medical student, as a resident. You're going to see the good, the bad, the ugly, the excellent, whatever. What you do is you take what you like out of all the stuff that you're seeing, all the ways you've seen it being done, all the ways you've seen or heard the question being asked, all the styles. Take what you like and leave behind the rest. As you're going through, pick out the best parts of the people that you're working with, the phrases that they say, the way they ask a question. Oh, I love how they ask this, or I love how they do this, or I love how he da da da. Take that best stuff with you as you move on from rotation to rotation, from skill to skill, and leave the rest. And then you'll end up with a whole lot of good stuff at the end of your training, which, I think is always a good idea.
I think that's really good advice. And your other quotes are just, I have like Pinterest boards and note sections where I just collect quotes because I love quotes too. And I love those.
Oh my God, I'm such a quotes girl. Yes.
And I think that you are doing a great job at living by them. I mean, you definitely have that fire and you definitely are amazing. And I think you're living life right. So
thank you.
With that, thank you so much for your time. I want to make sure that the listeners know to go to drjencaudle.com, to go to your YouTube channel, to your Twitter, to your Instagram, all Dr. Jen Caudle.
Yeah. My Facebook too.
Facebook, and definitely follow her because she has great content and I'm a big fan of hers personally, as a friend, as a mentor. So thank you so much for your time and what you do to inspire other people.
Well, thank you so much for interviewing me. And thank you, by the way, for being such an amazing role model yourself to so many others, even me. I mean, I know this is like a whole like freaking love fest session here, but I'm just saying like, we give credit is due. And I'm telling you, Chrissy, you're pretty badass yourself. And I love all the stuff that you're doing. So keep breaking down barriers.
Thank you. Thank you. And to all of our listeners, I hope that they can get something from this time. And thank you again.
This concludes our episode of Do or Do Not. Send all inquiries, comments, suggestions, and even let us know if there's someone you want us to interview to doordonotpodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to like us on Facebook at Do or Do Not Podcast for updates. If you enjoyed our podcast, please share it with your classmates and administration. We have plenty of more interviews lined up, and we're excited to share them with you. This is Tian Yu Shea. Thank you guys so much for listening to Do or Do Not.